Secretary of State Antony Blinken is going to visit China this weekend for the first time in this administration. And what is he going to do there?
The trip has three objectives. First, to establish open and empowered communications. Second, to advance U.S. interests and values, and those we share with allies and partners around the world. And third, to explore the potential for cooperation on transnational challenges.
Well, that was Secretary Blinken just a few hours ago. But there are many people who really believe that this trip presents the Chinese Communist Party a tremendous opportunity for a confrontational stance face-to-face with one of our top diplomats. So we'll see what's going to happen. We certainly have been watching the CCP strike an increasingly assertive foreign policy stance around the world, even as the Biden administration weakens our ties to some of those same foreign nations. And unfortunately, many of them are beginning to slip into Chinese orbit, if we can put it that way. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Tim Burchett. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, as well as the Committee on Foreign Affairs. He represents the 2nd Congressional District of the great state of Tennessee. Congressman Burchett, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Great seeing you, and I also look forward to seeing Andy Biggs and brother Clyde as well. They're both patriots, and I love serving with them.
Well, I likewise. It's an honor to have all three of you on the program tonight, and in advance, happy Father's Day to you. Let's begin, if we can, with your general thoughts on Secretary Blinken's trip to China.
Well, the second point you made, values. I wonder what values they're going to share with the Communist Chinese, that we're promoting a woke agenda all over at our State Department, apparently, and other factions of our government are promoting drag shows and other things. And what we're putting forth in this country is just disgusting to me, and I'm sure it is to the majority of your viewers. We've kowtowed to the Communist Chinese under this administration. As you well know, for the last 2 years, we allowed a balloon of 1800s technology basically to fly over our great country, coast to coast, and take pictures and take up every available secret that they could possibly steal that they haven't already stolen. We've got a administration that's taken millions of dollars. Our president and his family and their cohorts, millions of dollars. They set up over 20 LLCs and bank accounts combined to launder that money. And as you call it, the legacy media prefers not to cover that. So that really tells me we're going to go there. And it sort of reminds me of in history of when Chamberlain in England, he held up that piece of paper after he'd met with Hitler. And he said, we're going to, I believe we'll have peace in our time. And, they know China no longer fears us under Joe Biden as they once did under the Trump administration. And they're going to continue to run us over. I don't know what we have to gain from going over there other than to suck up, which is what it appears that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, and that's the concern, Congressman, that so many people have with this, that China is flexing their muscles literally all around the world while we sit back and have debates over pronoun usage and drag shows in our military. And this appears to be a potential disaster for the United States and allowing the CCP literally to potentially walk over Secretary Blinken. Are you concerned about that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, what message have we sent to them? They have a secret police station in New York we talked about. I mean, literally, I know you've discussed it and I've discussed it. It's over a year. And then they finally decided to do something about that. We've allowed them to buy farmland, oddly enough, that's strategically close to a lot of our military installations. They don't fear us. They don't respect us. This administration just showed weakness and poor leadership towards China from day one. They met with Chinese officials on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square massacre. I mean, what kind of message does that send? It just doesn't. And we've allowed them free access to everything in our country. They've infiltrated our universities, our higher learning institutions, our research institutions, just across the board. And we continue to let them do that. To me, it's very depressing.
Well, and the posture of the Chinese officials leading up to this trip, quite frankly, was not one that you would call a welcoming engagement. Again, they're even flexing their muscles as this trip is about to take place. What do you think we can take from that? They do seem to be posturing Blinken before he ever gets there.
I agree. I mean, it's clear they're going to make a move on Taiwan. But, the messages we send to them when we regularly reduce our sanctions on solar products that are made in China because Biden needs them for his Green New Deal agenda. Why in the heck are we not developing this stuff in this country? Why have we let the so-called environmental community put rules and regulations on mines that we could get these so-called rare earth minerals, which we find out aren't as rare as we once thought. They're rare because we're not allowed to mine them in this country. We have allowed, in some cases, over 20 years of delays on mining operations. Yet we allow them to do it in Central America with slave labor. We allow them to mistreat the Uyghur population, basically put them in concentration camps. They have organ harvesting. Just the most horrendous things, yet we're over there. And I guarantee you, Jody, we'll be over there in some shape, form, or fashion, begging them for forgiveness. And it's all about the dollar. And they're not going to, they're not going to give it to, they're not going to take it from us. We're going to give it to them. We are going to give them this country. And it's because of the leadership we have in the White House.
Well, it certainly is a bleak picture to consider. You also serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and you had in that committee a hearing this past week on China's Belt and Road Initiative, excuse me. Did you get anything out of that? What were some of the takeaways you personally got from that hearing?
That we've completely capitulated in many of these countries over in Central America. I mean, these are countries that are close to bordering on us. And through the Belt and Road Initiative, it's a real simple operation. They go into these countries that are probably not as educated and agree to build something of importance to them, a dam or a hydroelectric plant, something like that, a waste to energy facility, say, we're going to do it at this point. And then they come back and say, well, it's going to cost a lot more. They bankrupt the country because they're uneducated and their leaders are probably slightly crooked, or crooked as a dog leg, as we say here in East Tennessee. And then they come in and say, well, we'll just run the whole show for you, dadgummit. And then they do, and they bring in their people, and then they control it. And then they control the market on that rare earth mineral or whatever they get in that area. And then they sell it to us at a huge markup, and we're further enslaved to them. Instead of our State Department doing its job, instead of spending millions upon millions of things like drag shows, which they do, and exporting everything that we shouldn't be exporting. They should be exporting democracy and free enterprise. And then we get into this bind. And now we're behind the 8 ball. And now Secretary of State Blinken is over in China. I guarantee you begging for backroom deals. You've got a president that's been co-opted and corrupted by the millions of Chinese dollars. And you have a Justice Department that will not investigate. You have a media that will not talk about this at all. And so, we are in a bind. And I go back to my original premise. 20 million so-called evangelical Christians decided to stay home on Election Day. And that's what's causing this from top to bottom. We've got to get educated. We've got to get motivated, and we got to get mad because Jesus didn't ask them to leave the temple. He threw them out.
Great point. Well, unfortunately, our time has expired, Congressman, but FRC recently had a report that highlighted, of course, which you well know, this administration's obsession with LGBT agenda within our military and our foreign policy. And, it's fearful to me that type of policy, frankly, could be driving many countries toward China and further away from the United States. It's frightful. Congressman Tim Burchett, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch. Always great to see you, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you for being a patriot, brother. We appreciate you.